My name is Leo Thorsness. Air Force, enlisted guy, flying school, officer, fighter pilot. And my career at the end was Wild Weasel fighter pilot, killing SAM sites in Vietnam. And I was the very best Wild Weasel pilot there was for 92 and a half missions. And then things kind of fell apart, and I ended up being shot down and spent the next 6 years in the Hilton in Hanoi, various prisons. As far as my prison goes, I was there about 6 years, which is about an average amount of time for we old timers. 350 of us known alive in the system for 6 years. And the 3 years were first 3 years were brutal. Last 3 years were boring. First 3 years you were solitary confinement most of the time, or 2 or 3%. Last 3 years were big cells. First 3 years, any sound they could hear, a whisper, a tap, or anything, if they could hear you, they beat you. And the last 3 years, we could talk out loud and so on. So major difference for a lot of reasons, but that was kind of, the prison was broke down into about those 2-3 year segments. The way, I think I always used about the same system. And something I've always remembered, there's about 4 ways I dealt with the really tough times. And when you're being tortured and you're solitary, and they don't really care if you live or not, number one, the will to survive is really strong. Really strong. 2 is I broke time in small little blocks. You didn't have a watch, but if you could count your heart rate, if you could concentrate that much being tortured, it's fast, but you can estimate time. And when I thought I was about had it, I would say, Leo, last another minute. Last another 30 seconds. Just like everybody's heard people say, going through tough times, I'll take it a day at a time. You know, their spouse died or whatever. Number 3, we were surrounded with just outstanding people. We all have a few good friends. In Hanoi, it's like we had 350 good friends. Everybody was there. It didn't matter what color you were. It didn't matter what your religion was, what service you were in. There were people, a person took torture from me. He thought I wasn't going to survive, make it another day. And he went out of his way just to be really obnoxious. And they jumped on him and left me alone. And that's brotherly love. And then also I'm a Christian. And I don't mean to say that last or put it last, but I think we're supposed to do the best we can for ourselves. And but there were prayers answered there. I saw a couple of miracles there. But so getting through tough times is, it took a while to learn that, but it came natural. I was on my third mission, and in those days, if you got 9 missions, they would give you 10 easy counters, because half the people got shot down in Flight 105, single place, just go in, drop a bomb, come back out. Weasels, they go in, troll around in there while everybody's coming in and out looking for SAM sites. So our loss rate was twice their rate. So well over, probably 60%, 70% of the weasels got shot down. And but there were no easy weasel missions because our job was to kill SAM sites, and they were all in the tough area. But anyway, I was getting ready to launch a little strike of my own, doing 600 knots to accelerate and have a slightly nose up. I knew how far to go, and we knew how far that SAM site was up there in this case. I was going to lob it in and sneak up on those guys, or I was going to catch them. And it turned over a valley, which is a mountain peak, and turned the mountain peak was my checkpoint, turned over, accelerated 600 knots in. And if there's a mountain peak, there's a valley, and there were 2 MiGs down there. Didn't see them there under my nose, and went past them. They couldn't keep up at 600 knots, but they didn't have to. They just pulled their nose up, and I and my wingman, they just hosed off an air-to-air missile from an ATOL, a Russian copy of our Sidewinder, and went right up our tailpipes. And we were doing right at 600 knots. The max speed for 105 for safe ejection is 500. 600 knots is about 690 miles an hour, 700 miles an hour. And instantly the airplane started coming apart. And all I said to Harry was, go. And we talked about it. He'd know. I said, I'll give you 1 second to get out, because if he blows his canopy and then I eject, I'm ahead of him, and we're going that way. If he blows his canopy, stays for a while, and I eject, my rocket's going to burn him as I go over his back cockpit. So there's great incentive for Harry to get out right away. And you can edit it out, but the fighter pilots don't cuss, but I had a navigator in the back seat, right, an electronic warfare officer. And the conversation went, I said, go. He said, shit, then out he went. And we were when Harry here's back batting, my knees straight, when they have straight sideways, rather than, they went straight out. So knees were blown out, but the parachute opened automatically, and some of the panels ripped out because of the speed we were doing. But we survived. And another couple seconds, the airplane was just disintegrated. So that was the right decision. And we were captured on the ground, and made it to first interrogation for each of us separately. It was literally in a pig pen, and we both made it through the code of conduct, the name, rank, serial number, date of birth, what you're supposed to give according to the Geneva Convention. A lot of beatings, and then we in the truck took us into Hanoi, and then we went into into we had a cell block we found later in Wallow Prison, Hilton, called we called it Heartbreak. It was the torture cells, knobby walls, slabs, real tough stuff. And I was there. They finally broke me, and worst day of my life, because in my mind I was convinced everybody else was ahead of me that had been there. I knew some of we were fighter pilots that had been around together, family, and I knew some of those people. All of them probably had held out. They were the real Rambo. And so I remember thinking, if I survive, I hope they'll put me in another POW because I'll be the loser, and I'll be a failure. And they did. 18 days later, and 18 days and nights of real brutality, they kind of rolled me into a little cell. I couldn't really walk. And there was a guy in there, and we'd known each other at Talkley, Thailand. His name was Jim Heitshoe. We knew each other. We didn't recognize each other. We were changed so much, and he'd been there 6 weeks. And so I said, well, Jim, I'm a failure. I've broke, blah, blah. He said, Leo, you don't know. And I said, what's that? He said, everybody, this is one of the best moments of my life. He said, everybody who went through that type of interrogation, one of two things happened. They broke or they died, and some did both. So I was so relieved. It didn't make me stronger or them weaker, but it made me average, kind of. And average is good. It's really good. I received the Medal of Honor because my wingman had been shot down. And the Weasels, our job was to kill SAM sites. So we were always where the SAMs were, and the SAMs were in the highly defended area around Hanoi. So that was all our missions right in there. But my wingman was shot down. It happened to be another Weasel airplane. We had a spare airplane that day. And both of them ejected. I said, head for the hills. You got lights coming on. I said, And as he did that, and then pretty soon I heard my backseater and I, Harry Johnson and I, we heard two beepers. A beeper is when you open your parachute, it opens up, there's a little radio that's triggered, and that goes beep on guard channel. So you can turn your ADF, automatic direction fighter, and you can home in on the parachute. And as I was doing that, I heard him all of a sudden back here, there's a MiG rolling in on the parachute. He's going to strafe the guy and shoot, and that's not kosher. That's not fair. So he was concentrated on the guy in the parachute. So I get to concentrate on him and hosed him, shot him down with a Gatling, which is a great gun. 6 barrels, go around. It sounds like a buzzsaw. If you hit what you're shooting at, it takes care of it. And we tried to get some rescue airplanes in there. The old World War II Sandys, they called them. They could go a long time and go slow and had a lot of machine gun fire. And they'd come in and try to hold down. If they could identify the pilot or pilots, they would keep the bad guys away from them, and then try to get the helicopters in to pick them out. This would be the closest rescue to Hanoi there was. The odds were against it. But anyway, we found that, and then we were doing that, and we ran out of, we were getting low on fuel. We went out to find a tanker. We got a tanker. Asked for help to come back in. There's always mix-up in combat. No one was sent back in, so Harry and I went back in by ourselves. And it's the first time Harry questioned. He didn't really question, but he said, Leo, I said, Harry, if we go back in, we know the odds of coming back out are not great. And I said, what do you think? And he said, he thought of it, he said, we're the only ones who know where they are. Great man. So we went back in, and about that time, some MiGs jumped on us again, and was given credit for probable gun ammo was gone. Another MiG, and then Sandy, we lost one of the rescue airplanes. And so Sandy, too, said, well, Lee's going in. And I said, I had no idea what to do, so I said, get as low as the ground you can, turn as hard as you can over the jungle, as slow as you can. They can't stay with you, they're MiGs. And we'll come zip through them, and we'll pull them off. And that worked. No idea if it was going to not work, but they jumped back on me. Sandy, too, got away, and we outran the MiGs. And then the last part was I was real low on fuel, and finally some other 105s, American airplanes, came in, and one of those got lost somehow, separated, and over the radio, you always use call signs, especially over bad guy territory. And this time it was Leo. That gets your attention. Leo said, I got 600 pounds. Can you help me? So I directed my tanker to go over to him, and they couldn't get both of us. We were just directed. And he had 6 minutes of fuel left. And Harry and I quickly talked about it. We thought if we climbed to 35,000 feet out of Laos, if we could get within 70 miles of the Mekong River, we could glide, because the airplane would do, for every 1,000 feet, it would make 2 miles. And we got to 35,000 feet, and about 65 miles up, pulled it to idle, and it was showing empty, and we glided. We said, if we can make it across the Mekong, we're over Thailand. We'll eject, we're safe. and we actually stretched it out to a base real near in Thailand. So airplane was equipped as before we touched down a little bit there. So it was just a full day's work. And the neat thing about, it's a different part of the question, but the neat thing about being a Medal of Honor recipient is your peers recommend you for it, as you know. It doesn't start with somebody up there, and that's the most meaningful part of being a Medal of Honor recipient is your peers thought you did a good job.